Broadcasting from the Blanchistan Centre. This is Phoenix FM.
The internet is a communications tool used the world over where people can come together to bitch about movies and share pornography with one another.
According to the Nerd Index, you should be upside down in a junior high toilet around the clock.
This is We'll do it live! Time goes in, time goes out. Never miscommunication. It's over 9,000!
My name is Foxy.
The balls are in there. Do a barrel roll! Don't face me, bro! It's a trap! I'm a firing believer! Time to Hey, Charlie, wake up! Oh, God, oh, man!
Hello and a happy new year to everyone listening at home. Welcome to the Nerd to Know Basis show airing on Phoenix 92.5 FM and of course on YouTube and Spotify and our own website. I am Cian and with me this week are Dara and Kev. Happy New Year to you, Dara.
Live and learn. Happy New Year.
Hanging on the edge of tomorrow.
There you go.
Live and learn. Oh,
Is this a Sonic thing?
Yesterday.
Kev didn't leave me hanging. Thanks, Kev.
Happy New Year, guys.
It very is a Happy New Year.
Started and already I feel like culture has left me behind.
It's all about Shadow the Hedgehog, my friend.
That's the thing, Cian. The main takeaway here, you gotta go fast.
You gotta go fast.
You gotta go fast.
Do you have
faster,
a catchphrase?
faster.
Well, I know that song.
Yeah.
That's the Sonic X one.
The point is, it is a glorious day, it is a glorious year, and therefore for the entire world. Because finally, after so long, being a Sonic fan is not crippling disappointment.
It's not 100% cringe.
No. Well, it is, but I mean...
Don't throw down that gauntlet. There's 5 days between now and when this airs. A lot of cringy stuff can happen in 5 days.
Yeah, but not the Sonic way. No, I'm not gonna say that. I stopped myself just before. I was like, no, that's hubris right there.
That's my Sonic OC. Hubris.
It's hubris. Well,
Hubris the Hedgehog.
Funny you mention it. Since seeing Sonic 3 twice, and I will probably go see it another 2 or 3 times, I really got into like Sonic games again. And one that I missed completely for years, and I don't really know why, but it was free on the PSN a while ago. So I just had it in my collection. Is Sonic Forces, where you literally make a Sonic OC. So
I've got that one on the Switch. Yeah,
it's very good. Like
I really like that one. Yeah,
surprisingly good. But I think I was too afraid to give it a chance because I'm like, oh, Sonic Forces wasn't very good. A lot of Sonic games aren't very good, but this one really was. So I'd recommend that one.
No, because I got that one and Sonic Mania at the same time in a sale. And Mania I kind of appreciated, but found it a bit too tricky to get involved with. Forces, I think I had the right balance of mechanics. Like, I really like that one a lot. But you've kind of teed us up there. So there was a Nerd to Know Basis field trip, which I missed, to see Sonic 3.
That was your
so we're
idea.
gonna talk about that.
That was that Cian arranged. Let's not.
Yes. Technically, my arranged it. She didn't go either. Yes. So I am dying to hear about Sonic 3, which I have not seen yet. I have seen Moana 2 though, which may or may not come up. I know that's been out a while, so I know it's not hugely like on the pulse of what's current. And then we're also going to talk about some TV highlights and highs and lows, and some video games in the same respect. But you know what? I can almost hear the Shadow the Hedgehog like edgelord songs in the background. So Dara, why don't you just take us straight into your thoughts on Sonic 3?
Oh, it's perfect. It's a perfect movie.
Perfect.
The only notes I have, I think I can field Kev's query here. The only note I have is I wished he had Escape from the City in it, and that was it. No notes.
Did they follow him and set him free?
No, not really. That's the problem.
No.
It's weird because it's supposed to be a remake. It basically is a remake of are an adaptation of Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. So
Right.
if you played that game, and we are going to talk spoilers because that game's 20 years old, actually longer, 24 years old. You probably should have played Sonic Adventure 2 by now. Uh, but yeah, it's basically that. Put the screen, and it's fantastic. Like, look, is it kind of cringy? Yeah. Is it a kids movie? Absolutely. But for Sonic fans, it has so much fan service and so much good there. And also it's really entertaining. Like, it actually is a very well competent made movie. The second Sonic movie isn't the best one. The first one's quite good. Second one is it's kind of like
I
filler.
think like that's
This
kind
one's
of
really
what I wanted to get into though, is like, especially in the context. The thing about the Sonic movies is they do give off very little engine that could,
Yes,
because
they do.
there is an alternate reality where this franchise is dead in the water.
Oh yeah,
Where
like, this
where the
one where they-
studio where the studio did not listen to anyone, put out Sonic with hairy legs, and this movie flopped, and that's the punching bag of nostalgia critics for decades.
yes,
But
Yeah.
no,
you're spot on.
it is like, in the media landscape where so many things are just kind of happening. I think so many people are like trying to feed to fan service, but not actually listening to what, like, feeding into like, well, the fans want this, but not actually.
Yeah,
The Sonic movies are giving what people want. They're listening to what actually like the people want, and I think from there, they've always gotten a lot of slack in terms of like their quality. And I like the first two Sonic movies a lot. The first
Yeah.
one is a very play by the numbers. James Marsden sits next to a CG character. It's Hop, basically. It's Hop with Sonic the Hedgehog. It's not
Yes.
bad, but that's what it is. Sonic 2 has a bit more to it. Idris Elba's Knuckles really kind of adds a flavor to that, and obviously Colin O'Shaughnessy knocks it into the park. But it's still good for a kids movie, with the asterisks of it's very clearly a COVID movie.
yeah. No,
Yes,
like,
yes.
but it also has like a Parks and Recreation reference, which because obviously John Ralphio was playing Sonic, which is
Yes,
the best ever. So
so good.
look, if you're going,
But what I'm saying is that like this doesn't have that caveat. This is just an actually great movie.
yeah, no, it's the cleanest of the Sonic movies because it's actually a movie. You know, it's like it's fully formed. The characters you kind of already know, they've been established, and there's like high stakes. There's big set pieces. Like, they travel outside of Green Hills and outside of America. Spoilers, goes to London, and the London sets and goes to Japan. The set pieces are actually really good. Um, it's like, it's as you said, Kev, like, in another universe, there's no way this ever happens because they released the first one and it becomes, everyone clowns on it for decades. This is a incredibly successful movie in that sense. Like, some people say Mario broke the Super movie curse, or the video game movie curse. This has done that. Like, I think this is a much better movie than, and look, I'm no bias towards Sega, but I think this is better than the Mario movie. It's better than a lot
I
of
think
other video games
that's a
movies
good
I've seen.
point, because like the Mario movie, in order for it to be successful, it had to turn into an Illuminations movie. And like,
Yes.
I like the Mario movie just fine, but like,
Oh, I liked it too. Yeah, I liked it too.
Donkey Kong doesn't sound like that. Mario doesn't talk. Like, Princess Luigi is the Princess Peach. Like, sensible concessions, but concessions nonetheless. You can tell
It's
gonna make it
extremely digestible.
What's that, Kev?
Like, no, the Mario movie, it was made to be extremely digestible.
Yes, exactly. But you're saying this is very faithful to the Sonic lore, such as it is.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, like, there is a lot of backstory, and especially because while Sonic may not have his own like backstory, Shadow does.
Yeah.
And Shadow has like in the wrong hands, Shadow's backstory could be completely edgy and cringe, but they handle it delicately. They do actually because it's basically the death of his sister is what causes them to want to blow up the world.
Yeah.
This is Maria, the one who's always dressed like Alice.
the little girl, yeah.
Flashbacks and all that, yeah.
Yeah. Like, they actually put that with like a fair amount of like weight and gravitas. I think my only complaint is in making Jim Carrey Gerald Robotnik as well as Ivo.
Mm.
They kind of made him a comedy character as well.
Yeah.
And it works. For the movie that they're doing, it does work. But Gerald in the games was always a far more stoic and like cold scientist.
But see, I think they hit that balance quite well, though, Kev. I agree
No,
with you.
they did a great job with it.
And it serves the twist at the end where
Mm.
they're like, wait, you're gonna blow up the whole world.
Complete
You know,
nihilism. Yeah.
it's like there is that like where like with Jim Carrey's Ivo, he's in there for the laughs, as well. Then other than just killing it because he doesn't really want to kill anybody or kill everybody,
No,
but
it's to rule everyone.
just rule everyone.
Can't rule a wasteland.
Exactly, and it's just like that's a really cool third act surprise that is nobody really saw coming because you're like, okay, look, we've seen this before. They're gonna team up and get beaten by Shadow and Sonic, and the fact that it's like actually no, he dies a hero is really good. It's a really cool twist that I think was set up by
Is
the
this a
fact that
spoiler warning thing, by the way?
oh
We put that up top.
we put that up top.
Oh, okay, cool.
But I will say as well that Keanu Reeves does a great job. Like the casting of Keanu Reeves.
Well, that's what I was going to ask about because we talked about this on the show back when Knuckles, we were talking about that.
Mm.
And I expressed hesitation that even though Keanu Reeves is awesome, I haven't seen him do much like just voice acting. So how did that translate to Shadow?
He has his chops, like mostly from Cyberpunk, but the
Yeah.
thing with Cyberpunk is that like he's also face mocapped. Like
Yeah.
he looks like Keanu in that.
Yeah.
The best compliment I can give to Keanu in this is that anytime Shadow was talking and like talking extensively, I wasn't thinking that was Keanu Reeves.
I see what you
He,
mean.
like,
So,
he
it is
actually-
a bit like the Idris Elba. It is a voice. And
Yeah.
not
I think
just them
even
doing
more
their
so than Idris
vibe.
Elba because like at least because Idris Elba's really kind of hamming it up, and
Mm-hmm.
you're kind of aware it is him, but it's also Knuckles. In this, you just forget it's Keanu, and
Well,
that's
that is
just
high
Shadow.
praise. Yeah.
Like that's what's great about it. Like it's the intensity of Keanu that he's able to do. But yeah, halfway through the movie, you completely forget it is him, and you're like, no, that's just Shadow. That's what Shadow sounds
Yeah.
like. You're like, fair play. It's really really good. Like
Because it's a
wasn't-
hard voice to do, isn't it? Like I was rewatching Sonic Boom and Shadow turns up and immediately my ear went, that's not the Shadow from the 2005 game or whatever it is. Like it's an easy voice to impersonate, but it's a hard one to do convincingly and
I
put
think-
Well,
emotion
no, it's
behind,
it's
It's
an easy voice to parody. Because,
yeah,
like,
that's it,
yes.
yeah.
if you
yeah.
give it just that little too much gas, it's I'm the edgiest man on
That's
the planet.
it, yeah.
But like if you actually kind of like if you pull it back a little bit, give it that bit more gravitas and actually take it seriously, like don't make a mockery of it. And that's exactly what Keanu does.
Yeah, and Kev, you beat me right to it. I was going to say that you touched on it earlier on. But yeah, it's like it's so easy to mess up Shadow. So easy.
Yeah.
And all it takes is a lesser actor or somebody who isn't taking it seriously. And I think that's the difference with these kind of movies. If you go in, well, any kind of like kids movie or even this, we had this problem with comic book movies. I think video game movies now have figured out that, hey, we can actually make a lot more money if we just take it seriously. And this is the problem that comic books had for years. And now with video game, if you're ashamed of being in a video game movie, it's gonna suck. It's gonna be real bad. And
Well, that's the big difference I thought between Sonic's 1 and 2, because I feel like, now obviously I like that movie just fine, but Sonic 1, it feels like all the Sonic elements are very, very stripped back. And
They're
like
safe.
even
They're
like
safe.
Robotnik's or Eggman's costume
Yeah.
is sort of like, okay, you could wear that down the street. Compare that
you know
to
what?
like the Sonic, the Eggman in Sonic 2, which is the proper bald mustache. Now you've got Knuckles. Like that
Keen-
felt like, okay, we're embracing this now, So they've
What
gone
I'd-
further with this one then.
What I'd say with that is the way to look at this is it's very like with the MCU. First MCU movies, Iron Man, relatively safe, really good movie. A lot of the things are toned down to an extent. Then by the time you get the Guardians of the Galaxy, where it's been, it's made a bunch of money, you can bring in your talking raccoon.
Yeah.
And that kind of happened
And-
with this.
Yeah, and like I think
Excuse me.
because there was a clear delineation, again, the kind of the evolution of these three movies. If you remember, Kian, in like Sonic 2, and part of the reason I think that movie does end up working because of its limitations of COVID, the whole James Marsden side plot was so segmented from that movie You kind of forget it happened altogether.
Yeah.
This one, they've kind of cut that down even more, where him and his wife are in it for like 20 minutes max. And even then, they've been incorporated now into the plot, into actually being relevant.
They're not like interrupting the action, like.
No, they're
Not terribly,
they're directly involved at certain points, but they also do something really cool where the problem that Sonic video games had when they went 3D is weren't able to interact with people. You know, it was like you have your Sonic stuff and then you have them interacting with people, and it's to mixed results, to put it very, very mildly.
I just got a flashback to the Shadow the Hedgehog game. I only had Sonic Heroes and Shadow the Hedgehog, so they're my reference points. Of like the human like president.
Yeah, no, that's what
With
I'm
the
talking
picture
about.
of Shadow and
His
Sonic
little
on the
photo
thing.
of Sonic and Shadow on his desk.
That's not even anytime I like somebody talking about Sonic interacting with people, it's always I can never not think of Sonic kissing a human woman.
Oh,
That's still
that's
the funniest thing on the
PlayStation
planet.
one. Yeah.
In Sonic 06, yeah, like
I think I may have
yeah.
got the year wrong on Shadow the Hedgehog in that case. That was a PlayStation 2 one.
so look, but the point the point I was making before we lose it is this actually nails the interaction with people, right? Where you you have your alien hedgehogs fighting each other, but also being taken seriously. Taken seriously with these world-ending events where it's like Shadow, you kind of forget he's a hedgehog, if that makes sense. Whereas like no, he's actually a super powerful being that just happens to be a hedgehog, rather than oh look, he looks like evil Sonic. And then because that's the way they play it, you kind of just accept them as characters, which is a huge achievement, because again, this could have went real bad as well. You know, yeah, you really do have to hand it up to the filmmakers, because they went in. These were not easy movies to adapt, because like if you play it too serious, it becomes cringy. If you don't play it serious enough, it becomes parody. It's really well done.
They
Well,
really,
speaking
really
of
strike that balance.
filmmaking, just purely coincidentally, I saw Ben Schwartz as the Sonic voice, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he was on the Game Grumps playing the Back to the Future or something like that, and he was basically saying that to get his Sonic lines right, he would record them, and then they'd do the edit of the film, and then they'd bring him back, and they would say, "Are you happy with this take, this take, this take, this take?" And if they weren't happy, they would go again. Like, you know, so it seems like care is being put in at every level. And I've seen Idris Elba, the video, like him doing his knuckle lines, wearing the knuckles, the
Yeah.
gloves, so he can
Yeah,
get the
it's very
body
good.
language right, even as he says. So, and obviously, I think, is it Colleen O'Shaughnessy? She's from the video games, isn't she?
Cheers, yeah.
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 So like, obviously, they're putting, like, I can't speak to whatever they did with Keanu Reeves, but it seems like they're really putting effort and thought into every level of the development of it. Like,
So you really have to, because again, if you don't and you try to cut corners with this, it just fails. You know, like I think that's the reason why these movies haven't worked in the past. They're either trying to hide the fact that they're a video game, they're ashamed it's a video game, or they're like, well, look, people are going to go see this anyway because it's X, Y, and Z. Actually, just been like, well, look, this is the story we're trying to do, and here's how we're going to do it. Let's make it the best we can. Is it works? You know, like again, it's but they also avoid the let's set up a universe. The universe is very, that's one thing about the Sonic movies. It's very natural. The first movie's safe. It sets up the second one. They bring in Tails. Tails brings in Knuckles. And then by the third one, you have Shadow, and spoilers, you have at the end. So these are spoilers. There's two end credit sequences, and there's a bunch of Metal Sonics.
We don't need to. We don't need to.
No. What I'm saying is like I
Yeah,
won't.
no,
I
like
won't.
it's building out
there
an
are
edge
more
now.
characters to come. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I won't spoil the big one, but there's a bunch of Metal Sonics that show up, and you're like, okay, cool. That's going to be a driving force for the new movies, or for where it's going to go next. Then they bring in another big character who is related to another big character. And you're like, right, this is a very natural way to do it, rather than in the middle of the film. They're like, oh, there's Metal Sonic. And you're like, oh, okay, but we're in the middle of, it's like they finish exactly what they're trying to do at the beginning, and then they move on, rather than,
we're doing something here.
yeah, don't distract with some random key jangling. There's very little key jangling.
But I
in
see what
this
you mean.
movie.
Every character is getting their moment to like really kind of establish themselves into the story.
Because you
They're
care
not
about
like
them then.
they're not interrupting the middle of the action to have Big the Cat turn up and say his uh
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I
catchphrase
was.
and then vanish off the movie or whatever it is.
That's exactly what I was getting at. Like you could have, Knuckles, Chaos Team showing up and being like, "Hi, Knuckles," and then disappearing. Awful. That doesn't happen. Anytime they bring in
They
a new
haven't done like an
character,
SBO TV show or
no,
like anything
no,
filled
no.
in
Like
or anything
No.
like
everything there is very, very natural.
that. Mm.
Well, I think we've got a stacked episode still ahead of us. But Kian, I think we can make this brief. Moana 2. Is it as disappointing?
I won't spend too much time on this because it's like it's been out a while and it's
Moana
probably gonna
2, Electric Boogaloo, hit me.
that's it. To be honest, I really enjoyed it. I was kind of a lot of because I always hear about films from my students first because they are just like more on the pulse than I am, and they basically told me that this was supposed to be like a Moana TV show that they changed into a movie very late in development. So I was like, oh, really? And I was kind of geared up for like Lady and the Tramp 2 type straight to video stuff. But no, this was solid. I really liked it. Like the songs are still great. It's a good looking movie. It feels like they're kind of developing. Like basically the story is now they're all the Wayfinders and they have to go out and find the islands that used to have other people on it. So there's a nice kind of element of exploration and development. Maui isn't really in it until about 2/3 of the way through, which I think was a good thing. Don't want to redo the first one. Uh, like they've got Rose Matafeo being their like ship designer. I'm not sure if any of you watch Taskmaster. So like there's scouting new talent and all that. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's too recent to know if it's gonna like leave a huge impression. But I will say, like, coming to this a month late, yeah, I thought it was solid. I think Moana is one of the strongest, like, pure Disney things that's come out in like the last 10 years. And they could have phoned it in, and they didn't. It was a gorgeous looking film as well. So yeah, I mean, like, I'd probably wait for it at Disney Plus, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fantastic.
Okay, because like that's again, I think like because the wide criticism or the wide news about it was, it's been cataloged by Disney. This was a pilot for a TV show that has
Yes.
since
Well,
been scrapped.
actually, I'm glad you kind of flagged that. Basically, we didn't cover this on the show, but did you see Dream Factory or whatever it was called, the Inside Out show?
No, I've been advertised a bunch, but I haven't watched it yet.
It's really good. It's basically 4 half-an-hour episodes, and that should be on my list. That was a really strong TV show. But basically, I could see this Moana thing, and watching it, I was going, credits one, credits two, credits three. So I could sort of, if I hadn't known that that's what it was, I wouldn't have done that. But I could definitely see, like, okay, it's
Where
taken
the
about
script
half an hour
breaks
to leave
were.
the island. That must be episode one. Okay, now they've just gotten split up. That must be end of episode two. But like that didn't bog it down. I feel like whatever they did, it still feels like a slightly lower stakes movie, but a still really entertaining film. Like, it's definitely it matches the original, certainly.
Okay, high bar, because yeah, no, you said it. The original is probably the best thing Disney have put out, like from their original animation studio, in about a decade.
Yeah, and look, I heard people singing along with the songs while they were doing, which they also did in Wicked. So, like, if the songs are catchy enough that people are remembering them and humming them during the film, it's doing something right, you know?
Because that's another thing. Because it's not Lin Manuel Miranda back this time.
Is it not? Because I noticed he was doing
No,
a Lion King prequel.
that's it. They moved him to Mufasa. The people that were doing Moana 2 are the girls who did that Bridgerton unofficial musical
Oh,
that they
I hadn't
got
even heard of
sued about.
that. Okay, oh joy.
So I was that was a bit of hesitancy as well. So if you're saying the music's good, that's at least something.
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean, like,
they
don't
hit a
get me
chord
wrong.
there.
I can tell, like, okay, this is the "You're Welcome" of this film. This is the villain song of this film. This is the "I Want" song of this film. But that's more me being a Disney nerd. They still like shook it up and rearranged things. Like Maui doesn't get a song until like the last 15 minutes of the movie. They've shoved it round and they've changed the style just enough. Cause like I assumed it was Miranda again, so I didn't know that. So yeah, I'd say I'm
Okay,
still holding a few of them. So I'd say it's on par. Like
They did a decent job at cribbing Miranda style.
Yeah, changed it up. Like there was a lot more like
Okay.
kind of like spoken word breakdowns. The songs are a bit longer. Like the kind of the choruses are a little catchier in places. Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised none of them have broken into like maybe it's just because it's a stacked cinema season. Because the
Hmm.
songs are catchy. I still 2 days on, I still remember them in my head. Like, you know?
It is again. Listen, not to bring back the big fish in the pond here. It's up against Sonic 3
And Wicked.
and Wicked.
Yeah.
But no, that's okay. I'll probably still wait till it's out on Disney. But
Probably for
speaking
the
of
best at this
TV
point,
shows,
yeah.
yeah. But speaking of TV shows, let's to resume our part 2 of last week's episode, where we
Mm.
discussed the best movies of 2024, or our favorite movies of 2024. To say, you should also go. You should definitely go check out that episode. This week, I think we're going to
Yeah,
actually look back
I
at
humiliated
TV shows of this
myself.
episode.
Sorry.
But yeah, no, Kian, bring us through now. Just kind of quick fire down the list of what is like some of the most memorable TV shows of 2024 for you.
Yeah, this isn't like this is obviously a curated by me list. So by all means, like I'm speaking now particularly to you, Kevin Dara, get out your Googles. Just to put these are just the ones I've seen or been aware of, but it's still a fairly healthy list. So I'll start with one that kind of blew up in the start of the year, which is X-Men 97.
Mhm.
Do either of you have any fond memories or lack of fond memories on that?
Here's the thing: I never actually really watched the original, like the '96 X-Men,
Mm.
but I watched this and was absolutely bowled over.
Yeah,
It knocked my
it was
socks off.
great, wasn't it?
It could almost be blamed of like it could almost be charged with having like too fast paced with being rushed, but
Mm.
like it's so with fire and just covering so many huge moments of like the X-Men's history right up until and then like just that entire segment in what's the Mutant City, Genosha.
Osha.
Yeah, that whole episode is one of the best episodes of TV this year.
Yeah. Oh,
Just
absolutely. Yeah. And it's just the emotional swerves, like, and just the way they pace it. Like, they have to interrupt poor Storm's, like, mental breakdown to do the Genosha episode. Like, you know,
yeah,
and like, they do the Jean Grey clone thing, like, 3 episodes in. It just, if this was like a movie, you would not get a chance to breathe for the whole thing.
no, it doesn't stop, and like it uses animation to really like just throw home how like the scale of something. Again, it's the first time I've seen Storm be like really adapted as essentially a god figure in this world, which she
Yeah.
is in the comics. And then again, the entire like kind of ethos statement of the show being, well, what if Magneto might actually be right? And like
That's
it
it. You
not
beat me to it. Yeah, that scene of him in episode 2 lifting was it? I can't remember if it's the Senate or Congress, but basically lifting him in
yeah,
the sky.
his like judicial committee, yeah.
Yeah, because we watched me and Stevie. We watched the X-Men films this year, like in a row, and like you do realize with Magneto, you run into the trap of like if he doesn't become good, he's a boring, repetitive villain, and if he becomes good, he's a boring, repetitive hero. So how do you straddle those two extremes? And I think this show did it the best. Like,
Yeah, no, like I consider like it makes a bold statement up top by just saying Xavier is dead. And
yes,
here's where the X-Men are going from that. And like
yes,
all the little kind of dynamics that kind of like spur off from that. Like the entire thing. They made Cyclops so good in this. Like
Mm.
having Scott's whole kind of ordeal of him having to take up the leadership or like just fill the big chair that Xavier's like left behind. So like having that, then obviously that relationship with Jean Grey, obviously Rogue's then relationship between Gambit and Magneto. I love how they show Wolverine as just this short little like lonely man. Just this angry, sad little gremlin.
that's just
he's
it.
not
Cyclops is kind of the character who's hardest done by the live action films. So it was nice. Whereas in the comics, he's like the Captain America of the team. So it's nice to see him getting a bit of limelight for a change. Like,
yeah, no, like Wolverine's not the coolest man in the room. and then just some of the action set pieces. I think my favorite is the one where the mansion's being raided and it's Wolverine
Mm.
and Nightcrawler have
Mm.
like that back and forth sword fight with all of the were they Sentinels or were
Like the SWAT
they were
teams, like
the SWAT teams. It just
yeah.
the way it was like the way he kept jumping and the way the camera shot it was incredible.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're absolutely right, and there's more to say. But what way would you like to do this, Kev? Will I just keep rocketing down the list, or would you like to throw in something of yours?
I'll throw one in myself. I'd say
Go
like
on,
if
Seb.
there was one TV show I think stuck with me this year
Hmm.
more than any, I would have to put down Scavenger's Reign.
Oh,
Uh,
yes, you covered this a few weeks ago. Yeah.
I said, I told you about this a couple of months ago. It was
Hmm.
an animated show that was made by HBO that was then very quickly cancelled because HBO can't run a company properly, or Warner Brothers can't run a company properly, and then Netflix just swooped in and like took over like international streaming rights and put it
Yeah.
up and just gave it this second life. And it's this absolutely mind blowing like space sci-fi like saga where the entire
Hmm.
thing is that like very alien like a space freighter crew, just like everyday working schmucks, are on this like freighter spaceship that
Hmm.
just goes through this calamity. Most of the crew are dead, but a handful of the crew land on this alien planet and are just trying to survive. And the show is about them, each of them individually, basically trying to get it, like trying to survive and trying to get back to the ship in an effort to escape. And it's just like none of them know any of them are alive for a start, so they all think they're alone. And it's the way the show just develops this really interesting alien. Again, there it by all facts, this is a horror TV show, but it's some of the most creative alien horror I've ever seen. Like it is unlike anything I've ever seen in my life. And you should, everyone, if you have any interest in horror and sci-fi, it's a must. You absolutely have to go watch this thing.
Hmm. Well then, I'm looking through my list of picks. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through what was original this year, be it miniseries or like just
Mm,
original in concept. Then I'm gonna run through things that are sequels. Then I'm gonna run through things that ended. And since you've gone with like a
mm.
dark kind of like sci-fi thing, I'll leap to something which was technically original this year, which is Terminator Zero. Did you end up getting to watch
Oh, it was
that?
unreal.
Oh,
No, I still,
you take the mic there, Dara. Tell us about Terminator Zero. Like,
Well, look, it's going to be controversial, and it's very unlike me to be controversial. Um, look, I like Terminator a fair bit, but it's a very tired series,
mm,
and it's one that poor thing. It's been very badly handled by many people.
mm,
So the fact that they're like, look, let's just try something completely different, like just take risks, and boy, was this a risk. So for anyone who doesn't know, this was like an anime resetting of like pre-Terminator, like how Skynet happened,
mm.
how it like how Judgment Day was set up, blah 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 blah. But by doing that, it restructures it as a straight up horror sci-fi movie rather
Mm.
than like an action, which is what the second one was, and then all the other movies after tried to reclaim it as an action movie. This finally sets it back as no, actually, you're supposed to be terrified of this, and
Yes.
it was very very well done. I mean, it's on Netflix. It's not super long. I think it's what like eight
It's
episodes.
about eight
Yeah,
episodes
it's
or
about eight
thereabouts.
episodes. It's
Yeah.
not like you get through it in a couple of hours, and it's a very gripping series. So I thoroughly recommend it. If you're a Terminator fan, you know it's going to heal some of the pain. Uh, but even if you're not, and you're like an anime fan or even like a dark horror, a dark action horror fan, I think there's a lot there to like.
Yeah, like this isn't like I'm not saying this is necessarily a gateway into the franchise, but you don't need to know anything about Terminator to understand this story. If anything, I think if you know too much about Terminator, kind of gets in the way of it, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. It's a genuinely a
Mm.
clean break into it. You know, you don't need to be a fan. It helps. it could heal a lot of the wounds for the series. But if you're an anime fan, you're gonna love it. You know what this is? This is like what Castlevania was for a lot of people, where they may
Mm.
not even know it's a video game, but it's a really really good anime series. So absolutely, like, I mean, look, it's still kind of the Christmas season. Some people are still off work looking for something to watch.
Yeah.
Definitely watch it. It's totally worth your time.
Cool. I'll throw
I'm
in
putting,
something. Go on, Kev. Sorry.
no, I was just going to say I'm putting that on my list. I fully meant to watch it after you told me about it. It sounds great. It's that's probably tomorrow for me set now.
Yes. Oh, what a miserable New Year's. Oh my
Can't be any
God.
worse than
Sorry.
can't be any worse than
Then what?
I don't know anything. Put your hand in the bag and figure it out.
Oh, keep digging. I'll tell you what, I'll throw in something cheerful to lift our spirits. Uh, Moscow in the early 20th century.
Oh baby.
I'm just going to throw this in. It's not technically sci-fi, but we watched it and we did enjoy it. Paramount Plus has A Gentleman in Moscow, with Ewan McGregor and Elizabeth Mary Winstead. Possibly I rearranged her first two names. I'm not sure. But anyway, basically the Ramona Flowers actor. And
Yeah, they're
yeah,
married.
yes, that's
It's
true.
Hugh McGregor.
Yes.
It's Hugh McGregor and
Oh.
his wife.
Yeah, that's right. Well, they're the two leads in this. But yeah, it's basically, Kev, you'll well know this from having sold dozens of them. It's the adaptation of the book, and
You'd
it's
think I'd know what that book was about by now.
you'd think. I mean, the title says it all. It's basically it's a mini series, which are I mean, the problem with miniseries like films is you kind of forget them once you're done. But like, no, this was a solid one. It's basically Ewan McGregor is like the last of the vaguely royal family after the Russian Revolution, which happens in 1917 during World War One. And basically, because he hasn't actually committed any crimes, he's forced to stay in the worst room in a very posh hotel, and it's basically him living through the sort of the rise of communism and up and into World War II and all that, and all the people he encounters and all the social changes that happen as time goes on. It's only 8 episodes, but it's really well done. The characters are all fantastic. The show looks gorgeous. Like you can tell that it's like really nice sets and everything. They get top-notch actors for it. And yeah, if you're again to kind of put on your New Year's Eve or day thing, if you don't mind it not being a sci-fi, it's a really, really nice watch, even if you're not particularly into history or anything like that. It's just a really nice character piece. And as a drama, it's not like it doesn't hit you over the head with how bleak it is. It just like the situation, I mean, it just sort of lets you work your way through it. And McGregor's character is so relentlessly like optimistic that's a nice anchor. He just keeps going in the face of like continuing hopelessness. And it's yeah, as a drama, I don't know, I really, really enjoyed it. I'd recommend it.
No, Kim, what are you talking about? Moscow in the 1920s was the most optimistic place on the planet.
Of course, of course. Silly me. I didn't say anything. Please don't tell them I said anything.
Oh, who is that? That secret police at my door. Well, goodbye. So, do you guys want to hear about
Yeah,
some
do you want
anime?
to throw one in there?
Okay, I'm going to give this as a double whammy, mostly because they're actually two different series that are actually kind of hinting, that are kind of angling at very similar kind of issue, or not issues,
Right.
but like topics, in Delicious in Dungeon and Freerun.
I knew you were going to throw in that dungeon thing. I just knew it.
Delicious in Dungeon is probably my favorite show, or one of my favorite shows I watched this year.
Yeah.
Scavenger's Reign still the one. But the thing about Delicious in Dungeon is it sets up this very kind of like rote fantasy world where, you know, it's exactly your Dungeons and Dragons fantasy where there's elves, humans, dwarves, gnomes, the like, and it sets up like, you know, your very stereotypical dungeon where there's basically there's a tunnel that just keeps going, and it's this adventurous economy that builds on finding treasure and delving deeper and deeper in.
Right.
The thing about this series, though, is that it focuses in on one venturing party and them having to go back and basically rescue the main character's sister from a dragon. But they're out of money and they're out of food, and the whole thing is about, like, you know, they need supplies. So instead of stocking up on supplies and taking time outside that could be spent saving a sister, they decide to start eating monsters and like flora and fauna found in the dungeon. And it turns this like wrote fantasy adventure into a cooking show. And like it's through that lens of cooking, it builds out this really like intricate and detailed world where you like the more you learn about how a recipe is made, the more you understand how like the ecosystem of this world builds in on itself.
Mm. Yeah, no, I watched it too. I really, really enjoyed it. It's you're right because it's technically like a fantasy setting, which should be very like dramatic and charged, but it adds that element of quaintness to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, it's extremely homey.
Mm.
And it does just it's so good. It's so pretty. Like the animation's exceptional. It's done by Studio Trigger, who did Gurren Lagann and Kill la Kill, and the Cyberpunk anime from a couple of years ago. Yeah, no, if you're looking for something a bit kind of like homier and like kind of hearty, Delicious Dungeon. But to counterpoint, I want to bring Frieren, which a very similar sort of setting, which is that this high fantasy adventure based world with all the typical D&D tropes. Whereas in this one, it takes the focus of what the elf of a party. And the whole first episode is that this adventuring party have beaten the demon lord. They've brought peace to the realm. They're at the end of their day celebrating. Most of the party, I think the party consists of like 2 human guys, a dwarf, and the elf. In this, and the same in Delicious Dungeon, which kind of has its own take on it. The elves are basically immortal, will live for millennia, compared to like a human's actual lifespan of like 100 odd years. And the first episode of Frieren basically starts at that point where they win the war. And then as the episode goes, she basically skips through life and follows her human companion's life just up until like she'll kind of like go out and like I think I'm gonna pick flowers for a little bit. She'll leave and 30 years.
I think I said this before. I'm getting like a bit Dragon Maid vibes off it now. Yeah,
kind of. Yeah, it's a bit more solemn. It's not quite as like kind of fun and funky.
Just in terms of the difference between the immortals, bringing perspective to the immortal characters, kind of thing. Like,
yeah, and basically by the end of that first episode, Himmel, that's the name of the guy. He's lived to about 120 and he's going to die. That's the inevitability. He's reached the end of his life. And it's only when he dies does Frieren realize the perspective of it. And that her life, like his life was a drop in the bucket of hers.
Right.
And what that actually means and how like that builds out her connections to other people. And so the series is basically about her finding another adventuring party. The predecessors, the younger generation of that original adventuring party, and basically using them as a proxy to actually engage with the world in a way she hadn't. She had been so like distant from because she's kind of above it all. She's immortal. And it's this so beautiful exploration of just humanity and connection through that lens. It's amazing. It's actually stunning to watch.
What app is it on?
That'd be Crunchyroll.
Oh, Crunchyroll. Okay. Well, tell you what, by the way, Kev, let me know if we get down to 10 minutes because I'm deliberately leaving the Star Trek and Star Wars and Marvel check-ins to last.
Well, here's the thing, Cian.
They'll eat the episode if we do them any earlier. But Dara,
here's the
with
thing,
that
Cian.
caveat, go on, yeah.
Cian, ding, ding, ding. It's 10 minutes.
Oh God. Okay, I'm gonna just rush through my list lightning fast. Okay. The one that's been on the house our most is another anime, My Dear Friend Nokatan. We have an episode on it. It's bizarre. I would recommend it to anyone, even if you don't like Japanese anime or deer. Okay, and I also just want to give some shout outs to some solid shows that either came back or so The Bear, I think, had its best season this year. Took me a while to get to it, but that was really, really good as always. Baby Reindeer, everyone I knew was talking about that. I will admit I have a very sensitive disposition, and once I found out it was basically misery, I avoided it, but I will credit where it's due. Solid show. Black Doves, which only came out last week, is another solid one that we're powering through. Squid Game has only just come back. I'll probably do that next week. And obviously, Dan to Dan, we covered that a few weeks ago. Solid anime. I know it's probably not as highbrow as the ones you've brought up, Kev, but again,
But Down to Down is a stellar anime in it does so many things that in a worse anime would be jarring, but in this it has this frenetic mixing pot where it's engaging
yes.
to watch this teen rom-com that's also a weird UFO sci-fi series where they're fighting cryptids and all of this tied around the comedy of them trying to get a man's testicles back.
Yes, very succinctly put. Yes, and I'll also just say that, like, before we move on to the franchise stuff, because I know we're not going to fit it all in. I quite liked Doctor Who season this year. I think it ended on a bit of a sour note, but I'm looking at, like, I've got posters for all the episodes, and like, I just like that Doctor Who's weird again. We had a Beatles musical with like a drag queen as the villain. There was like one that was entirely set in one location on a landmine. There was like a stalker one. There was like a one set entirely in a social media. There was a Bridgerton parody. Speaking of which, Bridgerton, that was another big winner this year. Uh, so like, yeah, I like my Doctor Who weird, even if it's more flawed. So I think this is a good year for it. But with that, very quickly, 3 minutes each, we'll say. Uh, a good and bad year for Star Trek because Prodigy, Discovery, and Lower Decks all had solid seasons, but they were also their last seasons. I'm not sure if you noticed that, Kev, but like
Yeah,
Star
it was a
Trek, a
year of
lot of it's
endings.
winding down, like, you know?
Yeah, no, we have things on the horizon. We could talk about that another time. But yeah, no, it
Yeah.
was a kind of a year of endings for it. And I would say all in all up an endings.
Mm.
Like I think to talk from the most recent one, we never really got a chance to really break it down, but I think Lower Decks had a phenomenal ending. Like it
Yes, I agree.
really
Yeah.
it tied it all together. It used the multiverse in a way that was fun and creative, and also like I think we talked about it when we were talking about Lower Decks. It was a series that played in fan service but never relied on it, and that kind of held
Yeah.
through throughout its multiverse episodes. And it was just again another kind of big climax for them to go through. But the heart of it was just seeing where all of the chips lay at the end of it, and like finding out that Ransom became like just knowing that Ransom is now the captain of the Cerritos, and that Boimler and Mariner are kind of finally officers. Like it's just nice, kind of like getting that sort of closure where they finally got to rank up, and it was earned.
Yeah, and because they've got a big portal in space, they've the potential to pop up somewhere else if they want to in future. Like, you know,
Yeah,
the
like the
door is open.
franchise. Yeah, the franchise has like, and I wouldn't even say like Lower Decks or another comedy based series. I think Star Trek as a franchise tend to use the toys it's given.
Yeah.
Like, I never actually got around to it because it's hard as hell to get, but I still have to watch the short treks. But I know, like, actually, speaking of then to the end of Prodigy, the bombing of the Mars space dock, I know is
That's
kind of a
the
pivotal,
finale, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, that was a short movie that was kind of brought up, and that's become kind of pivotal to a lot of like different Star Trek series points in the modern timeline. And again, yeah, to the end of Prodigy, and where it's disappointing the Prodigy has been cancelled and kind of just cut off there. I think that had just a really like it left off in a good enough place where with the doors open for them to come back and actually like deal on Voyager and all that. But the it's been a while. All the names are escaping, but the arc with
Discovery?
No,
You're talking about the characters, sorry.
The character Prodigy, the arc with the blue girl, her whole home planet, that had convinced itself that the Federation were out to murder them. That wrapped up incredibly succinct.
Yeah, I agree. And and Discovery went out on a high note as well. I thought they finally used the Breen appropriately. And I felt like even though the last episode was a bit too long and schmaltzy, I felt like it was a good place to end that story.
Definitely. I think for I would say more dramatic and high stakes than the Lower Decks crew. I think Discovery needed that little bit more breathing room to kind of like give those characters that send off, and
Yeah.
especially because they're leaving off way outside of the parameters of like the general Star Trek canon. I think they kind of needed to lay that to rest because we're not going to see them again.
Well,
Even
you
though
actually might. The Star Trek
that's yeah,
Academy is going to be in that time period.
yeah, no, that I said it, and the moment I said it, I remembered that the next
Yeah,
series
yeah.
is going to be the
But
30th
I'm conscious
century.
of time, so I'm gonna turn my last few minutes into a game. Kev, even though I know you haven't watched them, I want you to try and remember what the Marvel TV things were this year. Go.
Oh well, I mean Agatha all along. I think I have it here as a note, but it's the best TV show Marvel have done. I
You
don't
just
have a
stop.
qualifier for that. It's the best TV show Marvel have
Okay.
done.
I have four Marvel TV things this year. Can you name the other three?
Oh jeez. Okay, Echo. I know Echo was. You talked about
Yep.
Echo. I never watched it.
Yep.
Was Secret Wars this year?
No, that was last year.
Damn.
Technically, we did X-Men 97 as one of them, so there's only one you're missing.
Oh, poo. Um,
It finished this today.
that can't be right.
What if? What if
Oh,
is
was
the
it What
last
If?
one?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's What If's always been
And
in
I'll
the
cover
outside.
it briefly. It's a real shame that it's ending because to cover series three very, very quickly, uh, basically they just used all the Phase 4 characters. So they had
Hmm.
Agatha teamed up with I don't have his name to mind, but the cool Indian guy from the Eternals. He's got like a comedy
Oh
background.
yes.
So the two of them, they had like Shang-Chi and Kate Bishop in the Wild West. The best ones for me were like, like kind of Black Widow's like Russian Captain America dad, played by David Harbour.
Yes.
There's an episode, him and the Winter Soldier in the 90s on a road trip being chased by the authorities, with him shouting Lenin's platitudes at poor, unsuspecting McDonald's workers while the Winter Soldier scowls. It's delightful.
That's all I
And
want out of the Thunderbolts.
Yes. And they also had like a Raising Arizona type one where I'm not sure if you remember Kat Dennings, like character. Her and
Oh
Howard the Duck
yeah.
of all people have a baby and they've got this
Oh
egg
no.
and it's got some galactic significance. So basically everyone from Shield to Zeus to the Dark Elves to Thanos are all chasing after this egg and it's a full-on farce as they run across space with all the big top-tier Marvel villains bumping into each other trying to. So like it's a shame this is now what if is done because I feel like now that there's Marvel is so cluttered, they have a much broader canvas of characters to draw on. They didn't even get to She-Hulk, or Deadpool, like. So it's a shame it's winding up now, but I think it did wind up in a good way. So at least I'll give it that. Uh, in the 2 minutes we have left, Dara, name the Star Wars shows that came out this year.
Bad.
That is not the question.
That's the answer, though. What was it? The Acolyte was one,
Yeah.
and there's probably some other equally as bad show. What was the other one?
We still haven't covered Skeleton Crew,
Oh,
which is
Skeleton Crew.
ongoing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh no, I wouldn't watch that
That's
garbage
that's
either.
not that's not bad, but I've thoughts on that for when it's done. There was also the Bad Batch wrapped up. A lot of shows ended this year that no one seems to have noticed. The Bad Batch went out on a really good series.
Yeah,
Like basically, like I know you didn't watch it, but it was basically like it was the story of how all the clones were getting thrown out and the stormtroopers were replacing them. So they had to like fight their like brainwashed brothers. And the characters from like that game, Republic Commando, were in it. And like it was a really solid way to end the show, like.
yeah. It's just, you know,
Listen, I hate to
I
agree with
can't even
Dara.
remember if Mandalorian this year or last year, to be honest.
it's just like, it's just so, it's just such a tired brand, you know. It's just like, just let it go. Either fix it or let it go. And it's just like, what needs to happen there is there needs to be a Marvel reckoning. You know the way like Deadpool came out and everyone was like, "Oh my god, Marvel's actually not awful. Like it can be good." Disney has never had. Disney's Star Wars has never had that. So every time they release
I
something,
think
it's
people liked Andor well enough.
yeah, but it didn't mean anything. This is what I'm saying to you. Like it's when the chips are down, it still doesn't mean anything. So they need to like have some kind of like not a reset. Well, I have advocated for a reset many times, but like realistically, there has to be some kind of reckoning where they're like, okay, we know this is bad. Let's try and fix it.
I hear you loud and clear. I'm on the same wavelength as you, and I agree. They need to put Deadpool into Star Wars, and that'll fix everything.
You
Would
know
he
what?
have lightsabers?
Of course he would. Don't be
Katana
ridiculous.
lightsabers. What they
Yeah,
need to, you know, there has to be some kind of like I've advocated, like all joking aside, I've advocated for them to just do the World Between Worlds hard reset, where it's like, okay, none of this mattered, and then that's it. Because short of that, it's very hard for me to even want to watch a Star Wars thing.
I mean, give it this. At least the stuff that came out this year was all original stuff. It's not like they're putting the Mandalorian into every single
Yeah,
situation or milking Baby Yoda. Like, credit where it's due in that respect. Like,
but Baby Yoda is carrying the entire franchise on his back. I will have to say
but
this
it wasn't
this
even in anything this year. So, like, they are trying.
yeah, but like I said, I've been to 3 Disneylands this year, twice in Universal in Disney World, right? And there is no reference to the Acolyte anywhere, or the Bad Batch, or Skeleton Crew. It's all entirely on the Mandalorian's back. So that's where the franchise is. They could release anything. Doesn't matter. It needs. It's not penetrating.
Yeah.
Well, like most of the TV shows we have spoken about this week, this episode, we too must end. And so
that's deep, man.
and
That's deep, man.
And yeah, that's really something to think about as you go into 2025, you know. And other things you can think about are checking us out on our YouTube channel, where you can find, of course, the entire back catalogue of all of our shows, very recently updated, thousands of hours of content, all at your disposal. Just go there, like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. You can also find us on all of our social medias through the links at nerdtoknowmedia.com, and there, of course, you can find a link to our Patreon.
We need
and with
money.
we need money. Please give us money. And with that is going to bring us to a close this week. Thank you all for listening. We will see you next week and next year.
It's
Happy
already
New Year,
next
everyone.
year when this goes out.
Shut up, Cian.
Money, please, everybody else.
Money, please. Well, I've been Kevin.
Alright, so you're listening to the podcast, you're like, hey, I'm not in Ireland, how do I get in touch? Well, TuneIn has you covered. That's how you can check us out live when we're on the radio. You go to TuneIn and download the app, or you can check out the live streams on nerdtoknowmedia.com or Phoenix 92.5 FM. If you want to get in contact with us, it's very easy. Nerd to Know Media everywhere. Nerd to Know Media on Twitter, Nerd to Know Media Instagram, Nerd to Know Media on Twitch, Nerd to Know Media at gmail.com if you want to reach out via email. Hope to hear from you soon. Check out the Wrestling Rewind here on Phoenix 92.5 FM every Tuesday at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. And of course over on nerdtoknowmedia.com, the only wrestling podcast by wrestling fans who don't hate wrestling. We'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.